were a member of the 2000 election committee. You
Yes.
cast your vote there. What it was like after Ms. Lam, Carrie Lam, was elected?
Actually, we have 1192 members, supposedly. And then after that, Carrie got 777 votes. Everyone was very happy. And especially people like us and all our other friends who supported and nominated her. So we all stood up and gave her our very big handshake and also a lot of the hand clappings too.
You sound very calm, but actually I knew because we had this brief discussion before this program, you were actually extremely excited because it's not an easy one game.
Yeah, I appreciate Carrie worked very hard, and also she has a very strong team of supporters. They also work very hard for her to really solicit so many votes too.
And the three of them, the three candidates, actually greeted all of you before you cast your vote, right in front of the door of the election.
Yes, before we went into the election to do at the poll station, the three candidates all lined up to greet all the people who are going to cast the votes and have a lot of handshake. And,
did you say anything to her?
Well, I gave her a hug and gave her my best wishes and also wish her to attain high votes.
All right, and therefore she did.
Yeah, she
did. So congratulations to Ms. Lam for achieving that goal, being the chief executive. Of course, that needs the appointment of the central government eventually in July.
Yes.
Having said that, though, the real questions come. Ms. Lam, how long will this, shall I say, political support surplus or honeymoon last?
Well,
Let's go to Ms. Lam first.
Okay.
So you would like me to speak, right?
Sure.
First of all, I am very pleased that we can see the First Lady Chief Executive to be born. And she faced a lot of competition, keen competition, as well as a lot of challenges ahead. But at the same time, there are abundant opportunities that may face and give to Hong Kong if we can grasp it wisely. I fully support Carrie because actually she is a person that would execute her plan and her platform. And I truly offer my support based on my understanding and working experience with her.
Well,
I don't think under the present atmosphere in Hong Kong, we should not, based on some rootless expectation that there will not be any discontent, no conflict at all. So I would not use any word like honeymoon. We are not working on any kind of honeymoon expectation.
right.
I think we would have to start right away and to address the real issues of Hong Kong.
Okay, Mr.
And,
Xie,
and I think
what about
she has
you?
addressed it. Yeah. Excuse me.
Mr. Xie, what about you?
I'm sorry, can you?
Yeah.
Well, I think, I think Ms. Lam Carrie is certainly facing a lot of challenges ahead, right? You know, because what's been leading up to this election was a very divided Hong Kong. For right, for wrong, you know, there are people who are pro-democracy, and there are some people who are also pro-establishment. In any case, we have seen a tremendous divide in the Hong Kong society, and I think the first priority for Ms. Lam is to try to close that divide, you know, that is significant within the Hong Kong community.
Right. There has been a lot talk about the division among the establishment, so-called, inside Hong Kong before the election, and see whether she will be able to mend the fences is one of her basic tasks. Before that happens, Ms. Wu, we already see the latest news, that is some of those members of Occupy Central actually came in front of the police station and tried to surrender themselves according to the police demands as a result of their actions during those days. This is only one of those incidents that's likely to further create debate in Hong Kong, to say the least. So, Ms. Wu, are you confident about Ms. Lam's capability handling crisis not to even mention some of the beautiful plans.
I have 100% confidence on Carrie's performance and abilities because I've known her for over 20 years and I've seen how she has handled a lot of crises and
Like
difficult
what?
situations, like the Star Ferry pier problem when she has to face the public by herself, and like 2 years ago when we had the Occupy Central, she has to face the students, representatives. So she always have taken a lot of difficult tasks. And I think she has attained so much experience in the last 30-odd years of her civil service that she is able to be very subtle and stable and handle all the circumstances.
But will she be able to be a uniter rather than a divider? Ms. Leung, what do you make of that?
I think the election has ended. We should not stay in election period. So all these kind of divisions and divisive force that are trying to be alleged by her competitors, I think we have to look at the future 5 years from another angle. We expect a continuous policy which have been implemented in the past 5 or 10 years, which have been seen to be good for livelihood. But I do think that the way of doing things, it seems that there is a growing consensus by different camps in Hong Kong. We want to have some kind of consensus, at least in terms of some common issues.
Right.
And we are working hard at that. And I believe Carrie would make efforts. She will face a lot of difficulties from the very beginning. But as time goes on, I think we have to convince the other people who would not accept you right from the beginning, while seeing her doing something, especially I think from the perspective of livelihood, like education, housing, and also economic development.
We're going to talk about some of those aspects later in our discussion, but you talk about, Dr. Leung, the necessity to move beyond the elections. That certainly is hope from you, supporter of Ms. Lam. But there might not be agreed by some of the others who did not support her at the very beginning. So, Mr. Xie, are we going to see this election atmosphere being carried over in the very first few months after she comes into the office, or leading up to her comes into the office?
Well, from what we're seeing in Hong Kong now, I think the different camps are trying to take different actions. And some, of course, are trying to continue to attack Ms. Carrie Lam. And of course, from Carrie's standpoint, we can also see her genuine desire to try to close the divide and to create a more harmonious environment for Hong Kong. But the challenge is significant. But I think the biggest challenge for Ms. Lam is that she's been an administrative officer in the Hong Kong government for a long, long time, and she's done a very, very good job, including being the chief executive for the last 5 years. However, the election of the chief executive is a very, very different job for her. And this is a political job. She's got to learn to become more of a leader and to become more inclusive than to really take on tasks, which is the job of the AO for a long time. So I think the challenge for her is to what extent she could migrate from being a tactician to more of a political leader and to be inclusive of all the various factions here in Hong Kong. But I think she can do it. I give her a lot of confidence.
That's a great point. I want to go to you, Ms. Wu. Ms. Lam worked in the Hong Kong SAR for decades. So she is part of the stories of all previous chief executives.
Yes.
Now she is on her own to be the chief executive. How is she going to set her tone while at the same time respect the predecessors she worked with as subordinate? That is going to be an extremely interesting question, because there are different views about the previous chief executives.
I personally feel that she has handled a lot of the good policies, not only for the last 5 years, but even before that when she was working in different government positions. So she knows how to really I would say, lead the civil service, especially the senior civil servants, to actually carry along the good governance of the government. At the same time, I feel because she has a lot of support and the trust from central government, this is very important for her credential.
Yeah.
And when the central government backs up Hong Kong through the chief executive, because she gets the mandate to serve the people from the central government, she knows how to change her position, as Mr. Tse says, to become a leader to serve the people of Hong Kong.
There are several things Ms. Lam, we all agree it seems, has to deliver during her job, particularly at the very beginning of her coming into the office. She has to, once again, the confidence of the central government. She has to also be able to be the translator between the central government and also the Hong Kong SAR government and the people in Hong Kong. Meanwhile, she has to be able to deliver real benefits to the people in Hong Kong in order to win the confidence of the latter. So what she has come out with is something called so-called reconnect. That's what she advocated during the election a lot. But exactly what it means, Carrie Lam, some say, knows well the problems of Hong Kong that is facing right now. She set out to prioritize them. Take a listen at what she promised after her victory.
Hong Kong, our home, is suffering from quite a serious divisiveness and has accumulated a lot of frustrations. My priority will be to heal the divide and to ease the frustrations and to unite our society to move forward.
Well, that sounds great political slogan, but how to deliver that? She came up with a number of things. First of all, I want to go to you, Dr. Lam. That is, she wants to work on the education and youth issue. She wants to work on the housing issue, subsidies for the poor. She also wants to work on creative and green economy. All of these, huge tasks. At the same time, she juggles with central government, local demands. So where should we start with? There has to be a priority among all of these.
Yeah, I believe she is able to play the role, the double role, we call dual role, which she has to be accountable both to central government and Hong Kong people. And she got this niche that she got a lot of confidence from the central government. And from her observation, the more confidence she can get from the central government, the more room she can do to execute her own policies in Hong Kong. And I believe education would be the paramount category, because we can all see young people nowadays seem to be very discontent, at least on the face of the record, from this Occupy Central, very grieved with the system. We don't know where is the cause, but basically education must be one of the two and aspect we have to look into to see whether the present education system is insufficient to address the fast development of the world, as well as the internal system and situation and chaos of Hong Kong.
Okay.
So if she can look into education issues to start with, I think it would be a good start.
But Ms. Wu, you've been doing education in Hong Kong for a long time.
16
You've been
years.
advocating about education, about the China's history, Chinese culture to the young people in Hong Kong. The thing is, you emphasize on education. It takes time. It takes time to realize the goals. And secondly, all of these juggling economic and also social priorities, political necessities have to be handled at the same time. So where do you think is the priority?
I think priority is still on education, on primary schools education and kindergarten, because a lot of parents are quite concerned about the present problems we face in the education system, and they need attention seeking. And also I feel because starting from 1st of July, she will have a new director for the education department. And this is very important that Carrie says she is going to get an expert to run the department. On the other hand, education also handles the youth problems too, because a lot of young people in the working class.
But the thing is, the result could be time consuming.
Well, I think a lot of parents in Hong Kong wanted to see certain things can be handled in the education, especially in the primary schools.
Right. Mr. Xie, you know what I'm talking about, that when a new official comes into office, according to the Chinese traditional saying, one has to kick 3 balls. Those 3 balls have to fall into the net. That would make him or her win the respect and confidence from all sides. So that's exactly what Ms. Lam really has to deliver. Will the ball of education, the best to be kicked as the priority? Mr. Xie.
I think Ms. Lam has been very smart in picking the areas that, on one hand, she's very familiar with. You know, this in general, these are the areas of the people's livelihood and economic issues in Hong Kong, including education. But it's also an area that a lot of Hong Kong people, in particular parents, are really concerned about, and also is an area where a lot of political interests have been involved. And I believe that, you know, starting with education is not a bad idea. However, it should not be the only area that you need to focus on at the very beginning. I personally believe that the youth problem is also very critical, and that the youth problem is related to upward mobility of the youth people who are quite frustrated, as you know. And I believe that providing funding and support to innovation and technology is actually another important task.
Right.
But nonetheless, I read her agenda. I thought her priorities are pretty well set. I believe that she's pretty smart to not attack the very tough and controversial political issues, at least not right now, but to focus on the livelihood and also economic issues. I believe that that's the right starting point for
As
her.
you rightly said, Hong Kong is dealing with economic problems that Ms. Lam is fully aware of, and she thinks it's easier and more important to take them on at this point than political reform. Take a listen.
We have a lot of housing problems, we have a lot of education problems, we have a lot of health problems. So my first priority is let's tackle the easier things to try to demonstrate that we could unify people of different stances and opinions, and then we can move forward. And this is exactly what I describe as the favorable environment and conditions conducive to restarting the process of political reform.
Okay, that is the initial stage of political reform, starting from the economics, starting from the education, starting from livelihood. How to deliver, how fast she needs to deliver. I mean, where does the money come from? And how will all parties work with her? There are so many interest groups, as we all understand, in Hong Kong, probably even more than anybody anywhere else in the world. So, Ms. Wu, you're seasoned in politics in Hong Kong. What would you say?
I think Hong Kong people are very smart and very pragmatic, so they want to see results right away. And with Carrie's promise and her visions, I feel she can get the right team to get things done for her in the shortest time. When we talk about the shortest time moment, starting from today, she is already going to work in the office. So we are moving things, getting things preparation, and starting from the 1st of July when she takes her job, assume her new post, then I think you can see results even in the next 3 months or 6 months after she assumed her position as of July.
Okay, before we go, I do want to get the three of you final opinion. 20 years, Hong Kong returned to China since 1997, July the 1st. Will she, Ms. Lam, really make a difference? If you look at history at this point, where do you think she would stand among the chief executives? Mr. Xie.
I think she has a very good chance of creating significant impact to Hong Kong and also the relationship between Hong Kong and the central government. I give her a lot of credit for what she'll be doing.
A very important transitional role, it seems you're talking about. Dr. Leung.
In history, she has been the first lady chief executive at this 20th anniversary. At the same time, I think a woman chief executive may fit the present political atmosphere in Hong Kong to dilute the tension and to try. I think we should give her a chance, and she does have a chance to change and turn the clock.
change and turn the clock. That's a lot of responsibility. Final words, Ms. Wu, as well.
I think the central government has created a new, I would say, a new era to give a woman a chance to be the chief executive. And with
And
this
she works hard for it.
she has worked hard and she has proven her value, or else central government will not give her this chance, an opportunity. So I feel she will be the really the transitional point to bring central government's understanding more closer to understand Hong Kong, and,
All right.
and the people of Hong Kong also aware of all the understanding and meaning and interpretation of central government policies. Much easier maybe for a woman.